Today I'm getting to the bottom of who is truly the fastest character in all of One Piece, factoring in both combat and travel speeds, and then counting down my top 15. Starting off with this pretty boy right here. Nope, not Cavendish of the Beautiful Pirates. Who even cares about that guy? No. The real speedster here is his demon alter ego, Hakuba, at number 15. You see, when this swordsman Cavendish here falls asleep, this dude goes absolute beast mode. During the Colosseum tournament, the round was down to its final 20 fighters, but once Cavendish ended up taking a little snooze, all of the fighters went down in the blink of an eye. But also factoring in that Rebecca and Robin were both capable of somehow reacting to his speed, it's not too crazy fast, not yet at least, because Cavendish's alter ego is far from the only character who can cut you down before you even know what's going on. In fact, you could argue that this is the signature attack of the first Straw Hat on this list, Soul King Brook, coming in at 14. Specifically, we're talking about his signature attack, the 3-pace hum, notch slash, which is a classic samurai move. And it looks something like this. He casually walks past his opponent, but leaves a little unseen surprise on the way, because by the time that he actually sheaths his sword completely, you are already dead. That means that Brook is able to slash his opponents before they even realize that they've been cut. And surprisingly, Brook's swordsmanship isn't the only speed feat that he has. He might get mixed up with Satan, but to me, he might as well be One Piece Jesus, honestly, because this man can literally walk on water, or I guess run on water, technically speaking. However, this is also partly just because being made of just bones makes him pretty light. Now, interestingly enough, at some point in a question corner, Oda even stated that Brook would win a foot race between all the Straw Hats, though I also gotta mention that a few of the crew members have gotten some ridiculous speed boosts ever since that comment. And overall, as you can imagine, scaling speed in One Piece is pretty difficult because of the big differences between reaction time in combat and then just straight up long distance travel speed. Brook here could probably beat a lot of the later characters in this video in a straight up race, but when it comes to a fight, he's not keeping up with top characters like our number 13 here, for example, Charlotte Katakuri. You think you can keep up with the Mochi Man? Well, think again, because while you might think that his future side haki makes him seem faster than he actually is, don't forget that he still was able to easily keep up with Luffy's Gear 4 Snake Man, a transformation that is supposed to completely emphasize speed above all else. And Katakuri is not the only child of a Yonko who can keep up with Snake Man either, because coming in at number 12, it's Yamato, whose Divine Step White Snake Dash here teamed up with Luffy's Jet Culverin to deliver a serious blow to Kaido. The names of the moves, just insane, but let's look past that. Though we'll have another one because Yamato also borrowed the Thunder Bagua from Dear Old Daddy, which, as its name suggests, is another lightning fast attack too. Now up next though, it's time to give the Warlords finally some love with Bartholomew Kuma at number 11. Now, don't let his size fool you. This Bible Thumper is one of the all-time fastest character in One Piece, barely missing the top 10, and it's thanks in large part to the Pawpaw Fruit, one of the all-time most broken and versatile fruits in the entire series, so why not have it give him super speed on top of everything else he's got going on, right? Now, when Kuma uses his Pawpaw powers on himself, it gives the distinct appearance of basically teleportation. However, as we learn later in the story, he's not teleporting at all, he's just moving really stupidly fast. And in combat, that's super impressive, but this is another one of the characters who truly shine when it comes to straight up travel speeds. Remember, when things started getting really dicey on Egghead Island, this man yeeted himself all the way from the first half of the Grand Line Paradise over the Red Line, and then all the way to the end of the Grand Line onto Future Islands. And I mean, yes, like, we don't have accurate distances and times to really calculate how fast Kuma was going, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that getting himself all the way to the other side of the world in time for the Egghead Island incident earns him a serious spot on this list. And actually, pretty much on theme here, I'm gonna stick with Egghead Island for my number 10 pick, who is Rob Lucci. Now, this CP0 agent awakened his Leopard Zone fruit, and it is crazy fast. And let's be real here, you kind of have to if you even want want to have a chance of keeping up with the absolute insane speed of Gear 5 Luffy. Not that he really keeps up in terms of power, because ultimately even a Devil Fruit Awakening isn't really helping him out in this rematch for the ages. But while we're here, I should also give a shout out to Roronoa Zoro, because he also is one who fights toe-to-toe with an awakened leopard Lucci. Again, the leopard also one of the fastest animals out there. And I mean, he was even fast already during the Enies Lobby days, using his 6 powers shave technique to move so quickly it looked like he was teleporting. And honestly, as far as world government combatants go, Lucci's gotta be one of the all-time fastest. I mean, it's just a real shame you didn't get a cheetah fruit, I guess, my man, because then maybe you would have had an even better chance and score even higher on this list. Because trust me, number 9 is faster and might shock you because it is God himself, Enel. And listen, I get it, I'm a little bit of an Enel glazer. I'll own that any day of the week if it means that I get to advance the Skypiea is a really good arc agenda on this channel. Sometimes a character just gets really lucky with a Hack's Devil Fruit ability, and my boy right here, he's made out of lightning. Now, electricity may not be able to harm Luffy's crazy rubber body, but it sure does move pretty fast. In fact, there aren't that many things out in the world that can move as fast as a lightning strike, and Enel's Logia Fruit turns him into electricity itself. Now, you may say that as a pre-time skip villain, he must be slow compared to some of the top contenders coming later, but one day, I swear, Enel is gonna finally come down from the moon and prove all of the haters wrong once and for all. And with all of that lightning, there's gonna be plenty of thunder, though I do think it's about time now that another Thunder Bagua user also showed up on our list. Sorry, Yamato, but turns out that Big Daddy Kaido beat you for the number 8 spot here after all. Remember that time when Luffy learned Future Sight during his fight with Katakuri? You should. I talked about it like 5 minutes ago. Well, that Future Sight haki did not help my man at all when it came to Wano, because it doesn't matter if you know that an attack's coming if you're just straight up not fast enough to do anything about it. And well, that's pretty much exactly what happened in Wano's first act, when Kaido just straight up speed blitzed Luffy and one-shot him with a powerful Thunder Bagua. Now, you might be right in asking, why is Kaido getting outed for special treatment here? And there were a ton of Yonko level characters who probably match his speed and beat out some of the earlier entries on this list. But also, the fact of the matter to me is that we just don't have enough clear speed-based feats for a lot of characters like Roger, Mihawk, Dragon, Odin, etc, etc. And I'm not saying that they and many characters like them are not also probably super fast. They probably are. So if a character is missing from this list, throw them in the comments and consider them an honorable mention. We just haven't seen enough of them yet, I would say. Now, Kaido, though, gets the benefit of having combat speed and travel speed because his Dragon Zone transformation lets him fly across the sky, and he's definitely not doing it at snail's pace either. But now, before I head over into the top 7, I'm gonna shout out a couple of characters here that I'm honestly not really sure where to rank and put on this list, because I think you could make an argument that they are number 1, but arguably could also not deserve a spot on this list at all, depending on what you technically count as speed. Now, you'll see what I mean here. Let's take Trafalgar Law and Van Augur, who can just straight up teleport with their Devil Fruit. So if we count being fast as getting from point A to point B in as little time as possible, well, these two sweep the speedster category easily because they move instantly. But since they're not technically moving at all through that space, I'm a little bit hesitant to put them on this list in an actual official spot. I think you know where I'm coming from here. But now it's on to our real number 7 instead, Lucky Roo? Man, okay. You have literally zero idea how badly I wanted to put the Red Hair Pirate Chef at the number 1 spot here. You might even have come into this video thinking that he is the fastest character in One Piece. Because if you are a big One Piece fan, you might have heard that he is canonically the fastest character. You see, this is just a really common piece of headcanon that people think is true and that's really widespread. And don't let his looks deceive you, because Lucky Roo is surprisingly agile, and we do know that from some of Oda's own comments in question corners and not so much from actual story feats. And as much as I wanted it to be true, the idea that he is the all-time fastest in the entire verse, well, sadly just does not hold up when you actually dig in and do some research. I looked literally everywhere for the statements I thought existed myself about Oda declaring him the fastest of all time, and they just don't actually exist anywhere. Instead, this really widespread idea in the fandom came from some misinterpretations or bad translations of some of Oda's early statements, because you see, Lucky Roo takes his name from a comic book cowboy named Lucky Luke. You might or might not have grown up with him. Now, if you don't know, Lucky Luke's whole claim to fame is that he could shoot faster than his own shadow. A lot of people then took the leap of applying that same quality to Lucky Roo, but that is actually never what Oda really said about him. And while Oda very much has confirmed that he is insanely agile, and we saw the pretty sick feat in chapter number 1 of drawing his gun on a mountain bandit before anyone else knew what was even going on, we can't really scale him up to the really big top guys in the verse just for flexing on some Romance Dawn fodder early on in chapter 1. So for now, I can't put him any higher than number 7, but I do hope and pray that Oda eventually makes his status as the fastest character in the story canon once the Red Hair crew actually starts taking some center stage in the final saga. And actually, number 6 on our list is going to a character that I also thought would be a top contender for number 1 when I set out to make this video, but I'm very sorry, Admiral Kizaru? What? You did not get to make the top 5 in the end either. Yes, I know, I hear you. Stop booing, please stop. Okay, thank you. I know it's absolutely insane that I would put the man who is, yes, quite literally made of light this far down on the list. I mean, if we're talking travel speed, Kizaru can skip from island to island at crazy paces, but despite the powers of the Pika Pika no Mi, the truth is that we've seen a whole lot of characters in the story keeping up with Kizaru no problem whatsoever. Can't argue about that, and so the only logical conclusion I can draw here is that the light fruit doesn't actually allow you to move as fast as the literal speed of light. That, or Kizaru's just so laid back and lazy, we've never seen him actually use his full power even close. And taking all of this into consideration, Kizaru's probably best speed feat out there is when he grabbed all of that food for Luffy without anyone noticing and feeding him, because in an SBS, Oda heavily implied that it was Kizaru who was actually responsible, noting that a character would have to be moving at the speed of light in order to pull that off. But if that's the case, then I have to wonder why the Admiral's not busting out that kind of speed when it actually counts, you know, in fights, because the following characters have all been able to keep up with him in a fight, reacting to his quote-unquote light speed kicks and beams attacks pretty easily, or at least reasonably easily. Starting off the top 5 with my all-time favorite One Piece character, the Dark King Rayleigh. Because when Admiral Kizaru stepped up to the Straw Hats at Sabaody, there wasn't a whole lot that they could actually do against him at that point. He was a Logia fruit, there was no haki, end of the story. Luckily for them though, the right hand of the Pirate King was there to save the day, keeping up with Kizaru no problem at all. And any One Piece fan knows that Luffy's haki mentor here is an absolute legend and monster, but the fact that he can easily keep up with the light fruit user at his age here, you know, kind of automatically makes him one of the fastest characters in the universe, which honestly isn't surprising considering that he was the second in command of the Roger Pirates. I would even say that if he was still in his prime in his youth, he'd probably be ranked even higher, but Rayleigh is getting pretty old and he also knows it. He kind of realizes that he can't take on a full Yonko level threat like Blackbeard anymore, so let's turn things over onto the next generation with another character who traded blows with Kizaru at Marineford, because from Roger's right hand, we're now moving over to Whitebeard's crew for Marco the Phoenix at number 4. Now again, this might seem weird, but we did see him also keep up with the light user, and he also gets a travel speed bonus since his mythical Phoenix Zone fruit lets him fly as well. He doesn't have the same kind of speed that Kuma and Kizaru have for traveling from island to island, but he is absolutely no joke when it comes to real combat, able to fight off multiple Yonko commanders at once who are just straight up super fast and broken in their own right too. But now, interestingly enough, for number 3, we're heading back to the Straw Hats with none other than Vinsmoke Sanji. Now, during his battle with Queen on Wano, Sanji got an absolutely wild speed power up from Oda. And in invisibility suit? I mean, who needs that when you can just move so fast that you're straight up invisible to the regular human eye? And on Egghead, Sanji doubled down on his speed feeds by blocking one of Kizaru's attacks, armed with nothing but some crazy reaction time and I guess the power of love. Now at this point, Sanji is probably straight up the fastest of all the Straw Hats, unless of course we count number 2, Monkey D. Luffy. Because who are we kidding? Sanji was of course far from the only crew member who got a massive power up during Wano, because Luffy finally awakened his devil fruit and activated God mode Gear 5th. And quite simply put, this thing is just absolutely broken. I mean, he started out the arc getting speed blitzed easily by Kaido with no chance, but after his awakening, he was dishing out the very same treatment right back to the big boy here. Moreover, in the very next arc, he was then bouncing around and just doing laps around Kizaru during their battle, making it pretty obvious to me that out of all the characters who react to Kizaru's light speed attacks, he is by far the fastest of them all, earning his title of Yonko. By the way, most people in One Piece don't actually know this secret, but you can actually also earn the title of an emperor by heading over to the Ohara Patreon, where whether you pick the Warlord, the Emperor, or the Pirate King tier, you'll get access to tons and tons of unique bonus content and get your name in the credits of every single Ohara video. Someone should have told Luffy. And speaking of him, even before he unlocked his Gear 5th, Luffy already had Gear 2nd and Gear 4 Snake Man that capitalized on some crazy speed feeds, but his latest transformation just blows all of it completely out of the water. Which then of course leaves us with the number 1, a character that I'm pretty sure can still keep up with Luffy with no problem whatsoever, and as a result also with every other character in the story, his mentor and inspiration, Red Hair Shanks. Now you probably also have realized that this man has a bit of a reputation for showing up exactly where he needs to be at pretty much always the exact right time, so much so that some fans have even speculated that he can control time somehow maybe. It's really weird. Now just to be clear here, I don't think that that's the case. I just think that this legend is really fast. All right, for example, let's just take his entrance to Marineford. Akainu was about to turn Kobe into ash here, and suddenly, out of nowhere, Shanks blocked the hit with his sword. Where even was he? Where did he come from? Instantaneously, Shanks made it from wherever his ship was docked to the middle of the battlefield in time to stop the war, with Akainu, who absolutely has future sight, having no chance to react whatsoever. Then, even more recently, he borrowed his old captain's signature move, Divine Departure, to just one-shot Eustace Kid, and using his crazy observation haki, Shanks predicted the devastating attack that Kid was about to unleash upon his allies, and in an instant cleared the entire distance between the island and their ship to just one-shot the entire supernova's life, I guess, into oblivion. Though I guess you could make an argument that I've probably missed plenty of characters who also have incredible speed, and I'm sure that you're already listing some of them in the comments right now and debating just how fast Kizaru's light speed kick actually is. In reality, most characters who are Yonko level have already enough speed to outdo some of the lower ranked characters on this list, but I also wanted to go with characters who have some real speed-based feeds actually in the story, instead of just rehashing a list that would just kind of be the strongest characters in the series. But if you do want to know who actually is Yonko level in the story, you can check out this video and you'll find out once and for all who probably should also be included in my list here. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much to all the Patreons. I'm still not used to these being on the other side, and I will see you in the next one.